Top 10 unbeatable Reaper features, in my opinion, and I'm a Cubase user. Let's get into it. So my first favorite Reaper feature, it's super simple, but I know in other DAWs, Cubase, we've wanted it for a long time. It's super useful, and it is multi-track or multi-channel channel freezing, meaning you could render the audio kind of in the background, and you could do this on multiple tracks simultaneously. Saves a ton of time. It's a really useful feature to free up system resources, CPU power, you name it. Very, very useful feature. Simple as that. Like Cubase, you can't do that. You can't do multi-channel freezing. And to boot, with Reaper, not only can you freeze and multi-channel freeze tracks, it will actually give you a waveform rendering of your frozen channel, because it's all getting rendered to audio anyways in the background, so you might as well have the audio right in front of you to see exactly what processing, what your waveform looks like. Super useful. Can't stress that enough. What's even cooler in Reaper is it allows you to stack processing, so you could actually process a post-frozen track. So if you freeze a track, you could go in and process it with another insert or effect or plugin. And that is just super cool. That's something that I don't know any other piece of software at the moment that can do what Reaper does when it comes to freezing. Moving on to number 2 is the SWS Auto Color. This is really cool because if you set it up, it takes a little bit to set up, but it's really simple. You just name the tracks, assign the color that you want, and any track with that name will get that color. Super useful for creating fast templates or starting from scratch. It's quite good, so definitely recommend checking that out if you are new to Reaper or looking to kind of dip your toes into Reaper. Moving on to number 3, my third favorite Reaper feature is the default insert effects, aka default channel strips. So by default, Reaper doesn't have any default channel strips, right? You might be thinking, well, Brent, Reaper doesn't have that. You're right. You can make your own, which is super awesome, like anything else in Reaper. So you can come in to the insert channel or the effects channel of Reaper, put in whatever plugins you want, whatever plugin chain you want, and you could actually save that as the default channel strip if you'd like. Being able to just have that on default is something that I've never seen in a software. But I know, like in Cubase and Ableton, stuff like that, Studio One, this isn't a thing. You could recall presets, which is super nice and handy, but you can't by default recall channel strips this way. Like you create a track, boom, there's your channel strip. Super cool. Your go-to plugins immediately loaded on every single channel is right when you create them is kind of a game changer and super quick workflow. Number 4 on my list is Delta Solo. This is really cool. This is also, I don't know if it's fairly new in Reaper or not. All I know is I love it. So what this does is it tells you the effect of what plugin or what a plugin is doing. You can use it on a per plugin basis. On any plugin, it's just built right into Reaper, and you could actually listen to the effect of that plugin. So like with compression, you can hear exactly what the compressor's doing. So you can hear how much compression, what part of the signal the compressor's attacking. Same thing with EQ. You could hear exactly the part that's being filtered or boosted or whatever specifically, instead of hearing it blended in with the entire signal. So it's a really cool feature. Kind of helps just to hear what some plugins are actually doing to a signal. And yeah, all you gotta do is alt click on the dry wet knob and boop, there you go. And now you're in Delta Solo mode. Really cool. And it's kind of worth noting too, every channel has a dry wet knob, so you can actually parallel and blend in your plugins even if they don't have dry wet or parallel capabilities. That's super cool too. Number 5, Playback Rate. I love this feature. This is something that Cubase unfortunately doesn't have, and me as a Cubase fanboy, I would love to have this feature. Reaper has a dedicated playback rate similar to Pro Tools, I believe. And I think even Logic Pro might have a similar feature. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that. But basically what this playback rate does is it doesn't affect the tempo of your track, but it just affects literally the playback speed of how your track is playing back.
Summer streets and the hot summer streets and the pavements are burning. I sit around trying to smile, but the air is so heavy and dry. It's too close for comfort. This heat has got right out of hand.
So this is very useful if you're, well, scrubbing through like long like podcast editing or something like that. I can see this being pretty useful for that. This is also really useful in the recording stage if, say, you have a guitarist, but they, maybe a riff is a little too fast. Maybe the tempo is a little too fast, but they have this riff that they want to play, but they can't play it at speed. Well, what you can do is you can go through, and to get it perfectly dead on, you can slow down the playback rate, record your take at a slower tempo without actually changing the track tempo or the project tempo. Get your takes and then speed it back up, and voila. Really great technique. Some might consider it cheating, but let's be fair. In today's game, there's no such thing. So yeah, really cool feature. Number 6 on my list is, again, super simple and widely underlooked in Reaper. It's drag and drop routing. Reaper has always kind of been known for a little bit more of a convoluted routing thing. Very effective, but kind of a little bit more complicated. It kind of scares people off. I know it did for me when I first ever heard of Reaper back in 2008. I was like, what the hell is this? No way. But once you learn it, it's great. But what's cool is you can now drag and drop your routing. So if you want to create sends, boom, just drag from the routing tab into another channel, and there you go. This same thing goes for sidechaining. You could route whatever channel into a sidechain compatible plugin, such as a compressor or a dynamic EQ, and voila, there you go. It's awesome. Super fast. I don't know any other piece of software that does routing the way Reaper does. So it might seem kind of a little counterintuitive at first, but it has so much more underneath the hood. Really cool. Number 7 on my list is the punch in and out on selected events. Most DAWs have a punch in and out feature, which I love, couldn't work without. So you can kind of comp your takes as you record. You get the perfect recording, and that's what we want. We want to get the perfect takes when we record. So that's what we're aiming for. And this just makes that a little easier to achieve, because now you could set it up in the software. So with every selected track, so say you have an audio recording and you just want to punch in and out on certain areas, but you don't want to do it manually. Now all you got to do is select those pieces of audio that you want to overdub or re-record, and boom, click record and record your parts, and there you have it. Just like a simple punch in and out, but now it's on selected events. Super simple, highly underrated feature. Again, I don't know any other piece of software that does this off the top of my head. Really cool. Number 8 on my list is kind of a cool one. I wasn't able to demonstrate this one because I don't have multiple project versions, but you can find other videos out on the net that have similar, that show off this feature more in depth. But it's very simple in Reaper, but it's being able to queue up multiple renders of mixes and render off different versions of mixes. So you have different versions of different projects or the same project. So you can actually reference and go back and do, revisions and whatnot in certain instances of a given project. So, okay, I want the guitar louder on this one. Boom, okay. Save it to the render queue. Oh, maybe I want it lower. I want the drums are a little different. Maybe the vocal has a different effect on it. All these can be queued up as different project renders in Reaper's render queue. You don't have to manually go back through and render off each project like you do in any other software. This one, it's all culminated right into the render queue window, and that is so powerful and cool. Number 9 on my list is Reaper's Razor edits. The only thing similar to this that I've been able to find is actually Studio One's Smart Select tool, which is awesome. Reaper has like a marquee select tool, but then it has a separate Razor edit tool. It's a fairly new feature, and it kind of does a similar thing. You could still select things with the Razor edit tool, but it's more for actual editing, and it's a little bit more powerful than your typical select tool. It makes it so it's not as kind of convoluted. sometimes that happens with smart tools where it's like, what's the hotkey to splice or cut or whatever, and you know, I want to fade this or whatever, or I want to control automation. Some softwares are a little bit better than others. Reaper has found a very nice solution to this, and I'm a big fan of this, and it's in the Razor Edit feature. So you can kind of go through, edit audio, edit automation, all that kind of good stuff, but you could do it simultaneously. You can have multiple Razor Edit windows, and I think that is just super cool. And the only other software that I know that can do that off the top of my head is Studio One. Studio One has the smart tool that can do multiple select options, and I think that's cool. Pro Tools might be able to offer that, I'm not quite sure. Again, somebody might be able to correct me on that, not a Pro Tools user. Moving on to number 10, assignable hotkeys, particularly being able to use MIDI to assign any feature in Reaper, and you could hotkey map any feature through either a key binding or through MIDI in Reaper. That is just so cool. Can't go wrong with that. It's so easy to use. As long as you have a MIDI compatible device and it works in Reaper, boom, assign it, whatever your hotkeys are. So if you like to use a lot of MIDI control, Reaper definitely helps you take advantage of that, which I think is super cool. Versus coming from something like Cubase, which, you know, prior till now, Cubase 12, which is a whole other ball game at this point. But previously in Cubase, you couldn't do that very easily. It was either, you know, it had to be like Mackie Hui mapped, or you'd have to like do some really like behind the scenes deep integration with Cubase's generic remote control. It was just not happening very easily. Luckily that has changed in version 12, but this is a Reaper video. So yeah, this is really cool, really fast and streamlined in Reaper, and I love it. These are my top 10 Reaper features. Check it out. I hope you like this video, and you know, give it a like, comment, whatever. You guys know the drill. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.